Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another stream of Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Friday, June the 12th. An event is complete, the Historic Shakeup. We did that, we got an easy victory and I had no interest in playing that anymore. That was the special event where you had to basically cycle out cards, I believe, to get mana. So you had like 140 cards that were just randomly assigned. Let's come over to the store and see what the daily deals are. Let's see. Daily deals. 650. Really shouldn't be spending 650 for a pack, but that is a discount on a pack, so it's not a terrible idea. I watched a YouTube video talking specifically about how you cash out on Magic Online, and apparently, like, the redemption system is even slightly crazier than what I thought it was. You have to basically own one of every single card in a set and then sell that entire group of cards. And if you want the foil versions, you have to own every single foil version of a set, and then you get one of each, which still doesn't really make sense compared to like what you would think you would want to do, which would be to have 4 of each card. So you'd have to basically redeem it 4 times. Somehow on Magic Online that still seems to be slightly cheaper than trying to trade and buy cards directly, but I don't even really understand how that is the case. See, we're at Platinum Tier 4. If we could get up to Platinum Tier 3, it would be nice. And we have 17 days to play a draft. So, we have Friday Night Magic, which we need to do. And then we have this Arena Cube draft, which would be 4,000. Cards you draft are not added to your collection, so yeah, this is terrible. This is a terrible setup. You'd have to be really, really good to win. And you'd have to get at least 5 wins to make back the money you invest. And even if you get all 7 wins, best out of 3, that's gonna be still a nightmare scenario. So that's not the draft to play either. Mastery ends in 12 days. The season ends in 17 days. We're going to have 5 days to do one draft. And that might be the way it should always be, though. Like, honestly, we should probably do something along that line. So we're doing Friday Night Magic at home. Momir. How do we double click to edit? Well, I'm double clicking and it's not letting me edit. You have a deck with all basic lands and an emblem where you can click to discard a card and pay X to make token copies of a random creature with converted mana cost. Okay. So there's literally nothing in this deck but a ridiculous amount of lands. Crazy. It feels weird to have a workshop that was really crazy and then have a Friday Night Magic that was really crazy, particularly when you know that a lot of these other things have not been like this. Boy, these are pretty. I think the store does a disservice to people who would want these skins, because zoomed out you don't even really recognize that there's a Godzilla creature in every single one of these. And even at this point, it's kind of hard to tell. So, okay. So how do we do this? Tap this, select 1, and then discard 1, I guess. And that gives us a 1 mana creature token. Now, are we always going to get deranged ghouls tokens based on the fact that we used a black mana, or will we just get random things, or will we always get black cards? Because that's about the only point where you can put any strategy into this gameplay at all. So we'll have to see what happens, I guess. Let's go ahead and put this on the field, and then tap this. And then I'm gonna do 2, and then discard that. And that gave me a red and a white, so yeah, it does seem to be fairly random. This guy has Death Touch. This guy has Mentor. So we might as well just attack. For a brief accountability section, I will say that I scheduled some videos. I didn't really do a lot other than that. But yeah, I did schedule a couple of videos. We're working our way towards October. I moved around my YouTube main page, which really only has like 500 people that have watched the trailer, which tells me that only about 500 people in the entire lifetime of the like 4 years that trailer has existed have gone to the main YouTube page. A massive amount of the views I get are not suggested by YouTube, not by YouTube's search algorithm. They're coming from Google searches way more, and about 3 times as often. So it really does go to show that my channel is like most small YouTube channels, on just kind of, if shadow banned isn't the right term, it definitely feels like it's shadow banned. It's just not getting promoted for sure. Alright, Scry. There's kind of no point to any of this. If I could get one card that said have five different color mana producing lands, that might mean something. But probably not much. Probably not much more than what we see. This guy has Mentor, but he's unlikely to be able to do anything. The PlayStation event, PlayStation 5 reveal event, started off by showing that GTA 4 is going to be sold on the PlayStation 5. So the joke meme I've seen certainly is that the trilogy is now complete, in the fact that GTA 4 has been sold for the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 4, and the PlayStation 5, and they've yet to really make a new GTA. And then many other games were mentioned, and we'll cover them one by one. And then at the very end, they revealed the hardware of the PlayStation 5 in 2 versions. One version that is more symmetrical, that doesn't have a disk drive, and one that has a odd outcropping for a disk drive. I felt personally that the Xbox Series X was going to be too tall for a Japanese shelf. So unless the comparison I have seen as far as height are wrong, the PlayStation 5 seems to be, while thinner, considerably more over tall. I don't know a better way to say it than that. It just seems way too tall. And yeah, you could turn it on its side, and then it seems like if you turn it on its side, it will have a bowed bottom where only a curved side part on the left and a curved side on the right are actually touching the bottom of the the shelf. But yeah, it definitely does not feel like a device designed to be smaller. And that has always been my concern and my thought pattern as far as why the Xbox the original Xbox and the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One, even none of those have ever picked up in Japan. So it does kind of feel like this design was not designed in such a way as to really have concern for the Japanese hardware purchasing audience. That's my main takeaway from it. I would say that it also looks like it is kind of more of a woman silhouette or vase shape, which is rather artsy fartsy. It definitely looks very different from what the copyright diagrams were, which we knew that was the case. Anyone who's been paying attention to the fact that they can fight a creature you don't control. Alright, well, fight him. So, yeah. The copyright patents images always are more general obfuscated descriptions than actual hints of what it's going to look like. The biggest point to take from this PlayStation event is I have seen definitely a lot of hype, a lot of yay PS4, and a lot of Minecraft, the Microsoft hardware is dead and it has no chance of succeeding type statements. Like a lot of fanboyism happening after this presentation, which does make me think that a decent number of people actually were hyped, unless I'm just seeing a bunch of trolls or a bunch of bots on Facebook, which maybe I'm just seeing a bunch of bots and trolls on Facebook too. So either one of those could be the case. So, but it does seem like hype is high. I don't know why hype is particularly high. They didn't announce a price for either unit. They showed a bunch of games. I would say the vast majority of the games that were shown are new games that nobody's ever heard of. And as I was watching someone's sped up coverage of it, because frankly it's just not worth my time. It really is just not worth my time to watch a presentation like that. Yeah, as I was watching it, I definitely had the feeling here's just another instance of the video game industry trying to announce and overhype things and get people back on the hype train when they are in this extremely unique position to say, hey, we can't even deliver the games that we promised to come out this year at all, and so we should take things slow and we should be re-promoting some of the games that have already been announced instead of trying to hype people on new games. But it definitely does feel like it's a series of launch titles that the vast majority of which could be vaporware that never actually come to fruition, or they could be just boring games which nobody's really interested in. Bag of Holding. The Dungeons and Dragons references are palatable. So let's go ahead and start going through the video game news. Hopefully if we go really fast, it probably won't happen, but if we go really fast we might be able to do another letter of the Steam wishlist cleanup. There is also a matter of, let's see. Yeah, I was gonna say I cleaned up and fixed my playlist a little bit more on my YouTube channel. Yeah, made tiny changes just to keep it fresh and updated. They're promising at some point a whole new system to customize the way your YouTube channel page looks for as few people that actually are going to see that. But it would be slightly appreciated too. I can't say I hate the idea of having a little bit more control and trying to clean up some of that stuff. So Gematsu has an article, Resident Evil shipments have topped to 100 million. I found a website that keeps a chart of series and games that have sold. And so while Minecraft is most realistically the #1 selling game, because Minecraft, for the most part, while there might be minimal differences between between Bedrock and Java version, and I don't think that there's really too many other versions that are worth mentioning there. Like, I don't think the educational version is that extremely different from Bedrock. All of those games are basically the same game. They are the equivalents of if you were to cover or talk about a DS version of a game versus a 3DS version of a game versus a Nintendo Switch version of a game. Like, although even in that example, a DS and a 3DS version might be more drastically different than the different versions of Minecraft. But the way this list is, and I have it at the very end, so if I remember I'll show it, but the way it works is it kind of bundles series and there's no good way to take it out. So Pokemon by far is considered the bigger seller, because Pokemon, like Pokemon Red and Blue, about the same games. Pokemon Gold and Silver, not really the same game as Pokemon Red and Blue. Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Stadium, Hey You, Pikachu, all those games completely different. Let's go Pikachu, let's go Eevee. So it's no surprise that that series could sell that much. What it really comes down to, particularly when you're talking about Resident Evil as a series, that it is surprising it has taken them this long to sell 100 million units, and it really speaks to the low quality of a lot of these spin-off Resident Evil games and how few people have actually purchased things like the what? Didn't that say it can't be blocked? That sucks. I don't understand what happened there. I only attacked because it said it can't be blocked. But yeah, the Resident Evil series only shipping 100 million units now also is a testament to just how horror and gore does not sell. As I'm wasting a lot of time recently rewatching Hannibal, which is now on Netflix, and like going through Wikipedia, thinking, well, maybe there's a small chance. The creator of the Hannibal TV series was Brian Fuller, so that is the person who worked on HBO's American Gods TV series, both of which were adapted from books, although American Gods I think is more of a comic book. So if American Gods succeeds very well, and I think it succeeded fairly well, there is some possibility that he would go back and try and continue or revitalize Hannibal. Although the odds aren't great, really. Like the way they ended the series is a good enough ending that it would be somewhat difficult to continue it. In fact, it's even somewhat difficult for you to for this TV series, which was acting kind of as a prequel series. It'd be difficult for you to integrate it into the novels because there were several characters that they just couldn't get the rights from MGM from, and it would be difficult to integrate it to the movies, like the Silence of the Lambs and the Red Dragon, the two versions of the Red Dragon movies, or the Hannibal Lecter, or was it just called Lecter movie that was supposed to be a sequel to Silence of the Lambs, but came out really late at that point. So yeah, I've gone on a side tangent there, but my main point is there's a lot of gore and a lot of psychological horror that happens in that series, and it's a very artistic, surreal series. Frankly, it just gets more and more off the rails, and I'm watching the third season now, and I feel like the third season in particular was a differently written experience. Even the second season definitely takes it in a different direction than the first season did. So yeah, it definitely feels different, and I don't know if I really like the third season as much as I did the first or second season, but in all fairness, it seems like most people liked the first and third season and didn't like the second season. Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that enough? At this point, I don't even know if there is any more mana cost cards. Yeah, that's a good question. Like, after 8, is there even a 9 mana card that exists? A 9 mana token you can create? Or did they just make up some things? Because, like, at a certain point this runs out. At a certain point this whole idea runs out. Yeah. Let's see. Moving on, we have a game here that's just written in Asian characters. It looks like it's a Diablo clone Chinese game, if I was to guess. English is not supported. It's free as within app purchases. Yeah. It would be a little weird if we started to see a increase of Chinese games again, but not incredibly weird. And we're going to run into a bunch of repeats here. Gematsu has the PlayStation 5 tag now. The Pathless adds a PS5 version. It's also coming to PS4, PC, and Apple Arcade. So, yeah. Mini games were announced. I'd say one of the most shocking games to be announced was a like furry looking game that really just feels like it kind of came out of nowhere. Let's see. I just want to satisfy my own curiosity here and see if I can summon something with 9 mana. Yeah. Yeah, so this is just a token of a thing. I mean, I could kill this for 1 life. Might as well. I guess I could kill, if I had more lives, I could probably kill more of these. Well, this is a funny idea. It's not really a interesting gameplay mechanic though. See, he's up to 8. And he's now gonna win. Gamatsu has an article here for PC and PS5 in 2021. A game called Tribes of Midgard is coming out, published by Gearbox Publishing. I'm a little surprised that Gearbox Publishing is still trying to publish things. Let's see if we can look a little bit at this trailer. Yeah, it just looks like kind of a CG, almost like a real-time strategy. Maybe even you go a little bit more like a almost tower defense type game where you're building towers and then you're having your opponents attack you, or your opponent's building towers and you're attacking them. It really is a great example though of just yet another game. It's like we're not, I'm just not in the mood. I'm not ready to have a dozen new games teased at me, that are going to come out sometime in 2021, they say, and that probably means they're coming out in 2022, if not 23, if not 24. Like, in all fairness, this game, which is coming out for PC and PS5, and I guess as long as these are also coming out on PC, that may also indicate that they really don't have that many exclusives, and even if they're just console exclusives. But it also might mean that if the PlayStation 5 got delayed, they still would potentially come out at the same on PC. This Deathloop game has been shown and teased before. This person is trapped in some kind of time death loop. This sniper girl is hunting him down every time and shooting him. And other people on this in this environment are also hunting down and trying to kill him, but the sniper girl seems to be particularly a story type character. This is, I believe, made by Arcane Studios, so it's gonna have a lot of elements of the Dishonored game, but also it definitely feels more like you are playing more like a first-person shooter, something more akin to BioShock. What I imagine, that there are several people that have to be hunted down and killed in the loop, much like Dishonored also. So I imagine what we will run into is a scenario where you hunt down and kill a boss, and then the sniper girl shows up as the real boss, and or she kills you, but it doesn't reset the life of the other person that's been hunted down, or something like that. Yep. It also has a bit of a visual vibe of something like We Happy Few, which I bet they're probably regretting that at this point, considering how We Happy Few did not go on to be a huge success. It's labeled as an Arcane Leon, Lyon production. So I don't know if this is a spin-off group of the Arcane Bethesda-owned company, or if there's just a whole different office that they use the Arcane name for. If anything, I think you could make a very good argument that Deathloop's teaser trailer and gameplay trailer here that came out yesterday put a little bit less hype around that game, because it was a mystery before. Like, nobody really knew what it was, and it felt like you were potentially going to play as both the sniper lady character and the male protagonist character. But now it doesn't really look or seem like that is the case. There's literally no strategy in this game, by the way. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to not just summon something every single time. It barely makes sense to not attack. So you're really not able to do anything more or do anything different here. It's just face for face damage. That's all you're gonna do. You're always gonna draw one card, so unless there was some strategy where I was gonna try and have two creatures, I mean, we could try that, I suppose. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do 3, and then discard this. And then I'm gonna do this. Oh no, you can't do that. Interesting. Can't be blocked. And Menace. It's probably not terrible. Death Touch is fine. So you can only use the emblem once per turn. Interesting. So again, no strategy. I couldn't summon 2 creatures at the same time in one turn, which was my thought, is that I would be able to do that. Moving on, Resident Evil Village, or Resident Evil 8, has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC, due out in 2021. This trailer is weird. It feels a lot like if you were to combine what looks like Resident Evil 7, maybe using the Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 remake engine, but then you put it in a village that is like the village in Resident Evil 4, but then you just kind of expand that village out in such a way that you're never really gonna get to a military island from the looks of it. But everything else from the trailer looks like it's very much that. They've just, instead of shown like a village in a Transylvania-esque, Spanish-esque area. It's now more in a, I'd say more of a kind of mid-European area, I guess is where you would put it. It feels a little bit even Siberian. Right. So 5 this time. And then discard. And then this. What does this do? Equal to the number of creatures you control. Interesting. Well, I think we might win here. You don't really see any gameplay per se as far as Resident Evil Village, and you really never saw any gameplay for Resident Evil 7 either. I don't think that they're probably going to backtrack into Resident Evil 6 territory, although this may very well be an off year, and they are in this weird position where they are potentially going to have an off year with one of their major titles because they failed to safely pace out development. But you might make the argument that they've already had that point. Let's see. Make that unblockable. And then we'll just see what happens. See, sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Well, we'll do that, and then we'll do that, and then we'll do that. Or we'll just win. Yep. Okay, we're done with Friday Night Magic. We got 2 cards of the older style. So it's the first copy of Bag of Holding and the 3rd copy of Tectonic Giant. So now we just play standard ranked and see if we can get some victories. I played a little bit yesterday and played in the middle of the night, so I think I even got 1 or 2 victories before I stopped playing early in the morning. TechRaptor has an article here, and this is where we're going to run into the risk of just saying the same thing over and over again. If you missed the PlayStation event, check out all the announcements here. This might be the easiest way to just cover all of this, frankly. Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Killzone Shadowfall, GTA 4, GTA 5, no, it's GTA 5, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, I have not gotten a straight answer here, but from best I can tell, this is more of a side game that will be reskinning the original Spider-Man game that came out a couple years ago. Not the original Spider-Man game, but with Miles Morales, and probably doing different voice acting and different characters. I am not sure if that means that you're going to be fighting the same bad guys like Mr. Negative, or if you're just going to mostly be swinging around the same New York environment with the same New York characters, NPCs, which I don't know if that really would matter too much. At a certain point, New York is just going to be New York. So it's an interesting point. I don't know what the point really is there, other than Marvel has definitely always been trying to push Miles Morales as the new Spider-Man for a new generation, which isn't a terrible idea considering all the history of Peter Parker. But I don't know why you do that in video game form when assumedly Peter Parker is still going to show up in the next Marvel movie series, which is going to make you more money. So yeah, but the fact that this is not named Spider-Man 2 Miles Morales, and it doesn't have any like indication that there will be a skin to play as Peter Parker, which would seem to be fairly easy to do, is somewhat telling. A new Ratchet & Clank game, Rift Apart. Ratchet & Clank, probably the only thing close enough to being a Mario-like game series for the PlayStation. So it's important, I think, that it was announced and shown off, but also it really goes to show that they really don't have a lot of a kid-focused mascot-style games. We did not see any announcement for Knack or a new Knack game. There's a game called Project Athea, a game called Stray, where you play as a stray cat in a cyberpunk universe. There's a game called Returnal, where you're stuck in a death loop, so the second death loop game shown. They're seemingly taking Sackboy out of Little Big Planet in the level design gameplay element and just giving him a standard 3D platforming experience. Here's Returnal, this female astronaut character. Destruction All-Stars, I don't even remember that one. Kenna Bridge of Spirits, don't remember that. Goodbye Volcano High, I believe that was the furry game. Oddworld Soulstorm, although I believe Oddworld Soulstorm has been teased and talked about on a few occasions for 2 or 3 years now, and it's just taking forever to come out. Ghostwire Tokyo, Jet the Far Shore, don't remember that one. Godfall, Solar Ash, Hitman 3 is coming out. Probably not super episodic there. There's a thing called Astro's Playroom, which I believe is a maybe tilt control demo that comes pre-installed with the PlayStation. I think that's what I heard. A little indie game called Little Devil Inside. A weird looking game called Bug Snacks that felt kind of like a Double Fine game. They teased NBA 2K21 and a remake of Demon's Souls, which I said in the last stream, I am probably the outlier here and not the audience that you should target, but I kind of feel like I'd prefer if Demon's Souls spent the extra effort to turn itself more into a boss fight section and a boss fight type game and less of a grindy type game, because particularly in the Dark Souls, Demon's Souls games, and particularly Demon's Souls, which would be the most difficult of the games, I imagine, there is a unique kind of grind in which you just die over and over again until you get good at the game. Alright, well, we just gotta hope. We just gotta hope this works. There we go. Let's see. Then we talked about Deathloop, we talked about Resident Evil 8 Village. There's a game called Pragmata where you're a guy in a spacesuit with some kind of computer AI girl. The sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, there is a Horizon Forbidden West, which, it being called Forbidden West, is kind of confusing because it makes me really wonder where specifically they are supposed to be, whether they're in kind of a post-apocalyptic Pangea world, or if they are going west to kind of a North America or South America area. I would imagine that they're probably not moving as far as an entirely new continent. But yeah, the fact that Horizon Zero Dawn is finally coming to PC means PC players will probably have to wait a while before they can play Forbidden West, and we'll just always play second fiddle to PlayStation's players as far as the Horizon series. But you definitely don't have an Uncharted game. You definitely don't have a Lara Croft game. You don't have a Knack game. And a lot of those games that were announced and teased are not first-party titles by Sony. One of them was coming from Sony Studios, or PlayStation Studios, which I believe is a different division than Sony Interactive Entertainment, although maybe Sony Interactive Entertainment just never makes games or publishes games. So yeah, there's some potential lack of hype on my part as far as those specific games. Not that the Microsoft Xbox Series X is doing any better. If anything, the Series X is just doing a very good argument to say, hey, it doesn't matter if you get the Series X or not, because you will still be able to play most games on an Xbox One of some sort. Oh man, I should have done that twice. That was dumb. So here someone has photoshopped the images, and as best as they can figure, this is the height difference. They have here an Xbox One, a Xbox One Series X, or an Xbox Series X. Is it called an Xbox One Series X or an Xbox One? I don't know. And then this is what it looks like for the PlayStation 5. Here's the one with the disk drive. And in all fairness, if we were to compare disk drives, this probably is a little bit shorter. I wouldn't be surprised if it's only a couple inches shorter, but even at that point I thought it was too tall. And then here's the version without the disk drive, which is way more balanced. And if you're going to turn this on the side, this edge and this edge are probably going to be the only thing that actually touch the ground. So it's going to be cooled from the bottom, cooled from the top. This screams having cooling problems and trying to be more passive about the cooling, and that's why it's so much bigger. That would be my guess, at least. Whereas the Microsoft Series X did a very large amount of testing, I imagine, to have all of its hardware crammed into a cube. So, like, they did a lot of testing to have all of its hardware crammed into this cube so you could have one giant fan at the top exhausting heat, and little feet to bring in air from the bottom, where I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's a huge amount of heat spreaders in this, and probably smaller, quieter fans. Fan noise might be a big factor. But if this is the right height, compare this to the PlayStation. I guess this is a PlayStation 2. It is, again, too tall. That does not feel like that fits on a anime fan's manga shelf, where the manga books are shorter. It doesn't feel like it fits on a Japanese light novel fan's shelf. And that's really where I feel like it should fit if you're going to try and get the Japanese audience. And if Sony, being a Japanese company, is not really trying to Here they zoomed in here and they put basically a comparison on the slot from the for the disk drive for the Xbox Series X in that. So they're saying that this probably is right, if I believe this tweet. This also feels kind of like a French fashion sketch of a female, just a very tight, angular angle here. Or if you want to get more lewd, it might even be a little bit V-shaped, as in the shape of female genitalia, or just a V-shaped in general, depending on how dirty your mind is. In a weird way, this design stands out next to all of your other AV hardware. You're not going to have a surround sound receiver that looks like this, probably. You're not going to have a Blu-ray player that looks like this. You're not going to have any other game console that looks like this. And that's a problem, because it is going to stick out like a sore thumb and turn into the eyesore of it. And I'd frankly have preferred it just to have been a big black box or a big white box. For as little effort as they seem to have done with the PlayStation 5 logo, it seems like they've overcompensated with a fancy plastic thing. That also, one good tip over and almost certainly these pieces will chip off, unless they are rather sturdy, solid, thick pieces of plastic, or not plastic at all. So, yeah. I think they got a little too artsy-fartsy for my taste. Visually. But maybe they wanted to stand out. They almost certainly did want it to stand out, and that's what they got. It kind of feels like what they did is they told some artist, some designer somewhere that they wanted their console to stand out visually, and he took them at their word instead of designing something more practical and more industry standard. I can definitely say if I was in a dark room trying to watch a movie, and down below my TV was my surround sound receiver, which would be all black, and every other accessory hooked up to that TV would be all black, and then you just have this white shelled thing, that's very likely to reflect the light of a TV and turn into it being a bit distracting. Well, moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Horde of Plenty. Not House of Plenty, which is a twin stick shooter game. And instead of trying to determine something, we'll just put this on the fall list and see what the reviews say. Probably not going to make it to the wish list, but I'm going to try and save some time and not hem and haw over it. Control, according to Gamatsu, is coming to the PS5 and Xbox Series X. I guess it is just called the Xbox Series X, so they are dropping the one part. Well, no, I feel like the official term and name is probably still Xbox One Series X, so it spells XB. Oh, no, I guess that doesn't even make sense. Yeah. I thought they were being ridiculous with the name, but I guess they aren't. Last time I talked about Control, however, I kind of had forgotten it even existed, and it feels like a lot of people had kind of forgotten it already existed. So while it will be perhaps a launch title that shows a good example of the improvements, particularly as far as ray tracing goes, that the next generation of games could potentially use, it probably won't even succeed to be too amazing at that point, because unless they decide to put out some patches and make sure it is doing something more than even the PC version can do, Control will still be its kind of same old self, which I didn't find the ray tracing in Control very impressive, frankly, because it seemed like it was in lieu of a lot of darkness and a lack of visual spectacle, might be the best way to describe it. So yeah, sure, I could go and look at a video. I could go look at windows and see reflections, but those windows and reflections didn't really lead towards anything. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that everything shown at this PlayStation event was at 60 frames per second 1080p or 30 frames per second 1080p, which is not particularly the best way for things to have been presented, and they gave excuses for that because of the whole pandemic stuff, but it's not really a valid excuse that they gave. By the way, I changed the avatar. Because you could have easily worked with scratch files. In most video editing setups, you can have lower resolution test files and then do the full render at a 4K resolution. I don't know if you can get over 60 frames per second on YouTube, but you could definitely have tried harder. You could have had a direct download or at least a torrent link. Like you could save yourself your own bandwidth even there and say, here's a torrent link to the presentation at 4K. We've got that ready to go if you want to watch that instead of watching the downscaled ones. They probably should have had something on the screen at all times saying this image, all images are downscaled due to the pandemic, and they should have hammered on to that excuse if they were going to use that excuse, because now there's at least one YouTuber I saw that really said that the video graphics looked pretty bad, not remembering or not hearing that they had already said they downscaled it. Here is a developer message, and I'll just point out that this looks to be the new inventory system for Resident Evil 8. It looks very much like Resident Evil 4. I think the inventory system in particular is probably more of the irritating point of Resident Evil 6. I don't recall Resident Evil 5 being particularly terrible with its inventory system, but I don't remember it being particularly great either. So it did something, I just don't even remember what it did. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that with the Resident Evil series selling 100 million units, this is the first time Capcom has sold 100 million units for any series, which is to go to say that Capcom has not been particularly as successful as you might have thought they had been. So here we have a screenshot of Pragmata, guy in a spacesuit, girl with computer eyes. There was a hologram cat. It seems like there's some weirdness all abound. It really is just a teaser trailer, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is a game that is cancelled fairly quickly. I don't know if I should have let that happen, but we'll see. We need as much stuff on the field as possible. Go ahead and attack with these two. Yeah, Gamma Sutra has the same article. If it, Sony unveils PlayStation 5 design but remains silent on price. White controllers. They also announced, and we'll talk about that later, a new HD camera, which they needed to, certainly. A headset accessory, which is slightly surprising, and I'm not sure if there was anything else, but it did seem like kind of a higher number of accessories than you really needed to roll out in this announcement. Seemed kind of unnecessary. It's a little shocking that they didn't bother to say something along the lines of, this is going to have mouse and keyboard support, because that would be helpful if they came out and said something like that. Okay. Everybody attack. As long as this doesn't do damage to me. Go ahead and sacrifice this. And we'll go and sacrifice this. I'm going to just play very carefully since I don't want to read what this does. And we'll go ahead and play very carefully. Need that. There we go. Sacrifice everything. All the things. Let's hop into the next game and keep on moving. Yeah, we're still getting cards. TechCraft has an article, Fantasy RPG The Waylanders goes to early access June 16th. So here we have a different Viking game. We may have too many Viking games coming out. The God of War series, I think. The God of War reboot inspired too many people. You can definitely tell that there's far too many people who just want to copy the most popular game, and so 2, 3, 4 years later you get these large gluts of wannabe copycats that seem to have no chance or no desire even to actually be a quality product. TechRaptor has the same article. Bluepoint's remake of Demon's Souls is coming to PS5. Now, I don't know if Bluepoint is the developer that nope, From Software apparently was the original developer of Demon's Souls. Bluepoint is known for remakes such as Shadow of the Colossus. So I wouldn't really expect too much from that as far as a remaster, remake is what they're calling it, but I'm not sure. I agree with what, if that's really what it's going to be or not. How much of a remake really will it change, and how upset will people be if it turns out that the game is completely different? Those are definitely two factors to think about. Gamatsu has the same article. Capcom announces Pragmata for the PS4, Series X, and PC. Gamatsu is doing a great job of pointing out that a lot of these are not even exclusives. These trailers, not particularly even worth watching as just a time-saving mechanic, considering how we're gonna see more advertisements for these games when they get a lot closer to their release. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Magic Elevator, which is tagged as Magic Underwater Space Arcade Adventure. If I was to guess, this is an asset flip, almost LSD drug trip experience in VR. $7.64. Requires the use of a keyboard and mouse in VR, English only. That's pretty bad. Yeah, keyboard and mouse VR games I think can be immediately dismissed as not being up to the level of quality that they should be up to, knowing the product that they're releasing on. And this is just taking forever for him to decide to resolve. I'm gonna start to get sleepy pretty soon here too, since I haven't been to sleep in quite a while. Like my insomnia is once again trying to shift my circadian rhythm, and the summer heat is not helping. Let's play this. Do next, do 2 attacks. Resolve all. Do next. Do this. Sacrifice 1. And then activate the ability. But don't play this because we're looking for Bolus Citadel. TechCraft has an article here for the Astros Playroom. Brings robotic joy to the PS5. This is the game that I believe is going to be pre-installed. Cute robots doing cute things. As a test and an example of the tilt ability of that they're integrating into their controllers. It doesn't look particularly special as a game though, and it probably isn't a great thing that the 5th generation of your series is having to train players to do a relatively simple new thing they should be able to figure out. Probably win. But if I don't, well, we'll probably get it in the next turn. TechRaptor has an article here. Hitman 3 concludes its thrilling trilogy on PS5. There has been no talk whatsoever that this was going to be a trilogy up until this point. Not that I recall, anyways. As far as the trilogy goes, I don't really feel like the Hitman reboot series has tried to tell really much of any story at all, for better or for worse, and so you're not really in a position where I feel like you really can say this is the conclusion of a thrilling trilogy, more than this is the 3rd game in a series of games that really haven't had much story at all. Moving on, TagRaptor has an article here. The Octotad developers' new game Bug Snacks is announced. This is a really weird game. Basically, there's a bunch of creatures. They are all personified, have eyes, and they are food items, snacks. And when this little walrus guy, who I guess is the only mammal type creature that you see in the game, when he eats this little strawberry character, his hand then becomes strawberry, which seems to be kind of the idea is that you become what you eat, and there seems to be like there seems to be some bad snack type characters also. It seems very weird, Bug Snacks, but I'm not sure that it's the right kind of weird, or if there's an actual game there, or if it's just silliness. So we'll do 4 damage. So I think that's worth it. TechRaptor has an article here. Abe returns in Oddworld Soulstorm, which, yeah, I just don't feel like the Abe's Odyssey series in any way ever really caught my attention. Although I think Soulstorm is trying to get back to that original concept of the original game as being kind of a puzzle platforming game. But yeah, between the games not running particularly well and just not being very interesting and being so varied in the styles of games that they were, it's really hard to... It was impossible for me to try and cover the Abe's Odyssey series when I tried to do it. And I feel like that's a great argument for cleaning up the wish list, is that there probably is a fairly large number of other games out there that are in that exact same position. Okay. I'm gonna eat this. No, I'm gonna sacrifice this. I'm gonna eat this. That's not gonna do anything at all. Tagraptor has an article here. Super Brothers return in Jet the Far Shore. I don't even remember seeing this. I must have blinked. That is certainly happening a lot these days, is that I'll just turn my face away from the monitor and get distracted. So yeah, I didn't even see this game, and it doesn't really seem like there's much to even say about it. Doesn't look that interesting at all. Sacrifice a creature, sure. Sacrifice that creature to keep it tapped. Although I guess maybe I didn't need to sacrifice the creature, but probably I did. Oh, this is bad news. Yep. Komatsu says Demon Souls is being made from Blue Point Games and Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan studio. Which, I don't know, maybe Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan studio will be the main developer of a lot of games that come out in the next few years. I'd have to get a mana. I'd have to get a whole bunch of mana. Yeah, I've lost. There's no way. There's no way I win this. Moving on, Komatsu has an article for PS5, PS4, and PC. Little Devil Inside is coming, a Kickstarter-funded action-adventure game. It's been a long time since we've even talked about Kickstarter. Excuse me. But yeah, Kickstarter, I guess, is still a thing. Let's go ahead and just save ourselves some time. There's no way we're going to win here. He's just going to wreck me over and over again. So let's see. Let's show this. You're playing as kind of a cartoonish, fiery imp devil creature, I think. And you're really, really small. And you're just going to go on this far journey, I think. I don't even think this is Little Devil Inside. If this is not the game I was thinking about. Well, maybe it is. So you have this like climbing, and then a bomb dropped. And then the bomb turns out to be... Yeah. I have no idea what this game is, obviously. There might be something in it, but this image is totally different than what I thought it was. I thought this was a little fire devil creature here, but this looks like this is just a torch. Well, there might be something there, or there might be nothing there. Being a Kickstarter game, odds of failure are a little bit higher. And that is probably a great example of a game that, had they decided to spend more than 30 seconds showing a trailer, had they sent someone out to actually talk about the game and describe the game a lot more, that would have been a lot more interesting. There is this weird balance in my mind where announcing Horizon Zero Dawn, you can say Horizon Zero Dawn coming in 2021, here's a trailer, and then you spend 5 minutes after showing that trailer and the audience is hyped, you show them you spend 5 minutes talking about this indie game that couldn't possibly ever compare, but that lets you give out more information and buy some time if you need to buy some time. Although, since this was a pre-recorded footage, you probably didn't need to buy any time at that point. But more information definitely would be appreciated for games that we don't know what they are or how they'll play, compared to Horizon Zero Dawn, where everybody knows that's going to just be a better version of, well, no, it's Horizon the Forbidden West. It's just going to be a better version of Horizon Zero Dawn, which is the first game in the series. I probably will have some small trouble keeping those names straight. Gamatsu has an article here. Solar Ash is coming to PS5, PS4, and PC in 2021. New game from the developers of Hyper Light Drifter. And again, it's neon-y, and it's probably, by the looks of the neon, kind of a high action thing. Almost like a boss fight game? Or is it going to be more of a platforming type experience? Or adventure game? Whatever, it probably is more of a platformer boss fight game, if I was to guess. Again, just another great example of a game that could have used a lot more description and explanation as far as what it was. Tech Up there has an article here. Adventure game Kinna Bridge of the Spirits is coming to the PS5. See, this looks good, and this could be a kid-friendly, like, mascot type game. This is from a developer and film visual effects house called Ember Labs, so it probably is going to be very pretty, but not have much of a gameplay mechanic or be that interesting. The fact that a lot of visual effects now are being rendered directly in Unreal does open up this door that a lot of visual effects labs will try to have some extra money coming in by making video games that they really don't have the skill or qualification to make. Those types of games will probably have very little if no story and very little if no gameplay, and we might see a whole new rush of what are the equivalents of Telltale games or visual novel games, almost maybe even the opposite of a visual novel game, in the sense that it will just be high visuals with low gameplay. That would be closer to a walking simulator, I suppose, instead of a visual novel. Gamatsu has an article here. Ghostwire Tokyo is coming to PS5 and PC in 2021. We've seen trailers of Ghostwire Tokyo. This is monsters in Tokyo. Is it a straight up horror game though? Or is it going to be something more? See, I don't know if you end up calling this like a BioShock game. I don't know what you end up calling it, frankly. Seems like you use your fingers a lot to do like Buddhist Shinto symbols to cast spells. Yeah, I don't know how the gameplay outside of the battle really would play in Ghostwire Tokyo, and I'm not sure they even know. And that's been out and announced for a while. Oddworld Soulstorm is coming to the PS4 and PC also. So all that talk of the idea that Sony didn't want at least its first party titles to have PlayStation 4 versions seems to have been completely ignored by any third-party publisher, and this announcement really just smacks them in the face of them making that announcement when they really shouldn't have, because obviously third-party publishers and developers were never going to agree to only putting their games out on the PlayStation 5 and not having it also be available on the PlayStation 4. So why make that announcement and why let that information come out? I know that Sony is trying to push this idea that they believe in generations, and this new generation is going to be so good that people are going to want to get a second or third job to afford it. But that's not realistically what's going to happen, particularly nowadays. After all the things that have happened. TechRaptor has an article here. Destruction All-Stars debuts with car crashing chaos. I don't even remember seeing this one, so again, this seems like it's a group of colorful characters that seem to jump in cars and then fight each other. So, yeah, it seems like it's kind of a combination between Rocket League and previous generations of car battle games. Doesn't seem like there's too much new to that. I'm just trying to go through all these redundant things. Gamatsu has an article here. KO_OP announces Goodbye Volcano High for the PS5, PS4, and PC. A, quote, queer narrative adventure game. So, this is a bunch of furry or anthropomorphized animals, I guess that might be the better description, in a visual novel type game as best as I can tell. Animated pretty badly too. And it's very weird that this is getting promoted when there's plenty of other Japanese visual novels that wouldn't be promoted. No, actually this animation doesn't look too bad. But this probably is a cutscene, or a collection of cutscenes. Because if that's the way the game was going to look all the time, then why do they have a screenshot at this point? Yeah, it is a fully voice acted cast, which is featuring LaShane Watson from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which that is something. But boy, does this game specifically stand out compared to all the other games that were announced. It's just not in that league. And if they were going to do that, they should have probably thrown in a bunch of other games that were coming to the PlayStation 5 that were small indie games or visual novel games. I definitely would feel like it was less just SJW virtue signaling if they said, oh, and we're also bringing Colonnade to the PlayStation 5, or we're also bringing a brand new Steins Gate visual novel to PlayStation 5. Anything along that lines to say, hey, we're going to get a more traditional Japanese animated style visual novel if we're going down the visual novel routes, and a more traditional, like, straight relationship stories, which I'm fairly certain in Steins Gate and Colonnade, if there are romance paths, they are straight romance paths. Heck, if they even said we were going to get Honey Pop on PlayStation 5, that would somewhat balance that out, although not really. But that trailer certainly stood out like a sore thumb and opened them up to a lot of criticism, which I don't think they will get yet. But if it becomes a slow weekend or a slow week next week, I wouldn't be surprised if you have several people point it out, as it's just does not look like a high enough quality game to justify being at this presentation. And if they were going to do kind of a Nintendo indie style presentation, that would have been fine, but then they needed to present some more things. Like, if they said they had the Binding of Isaac Rebirth coming out to the PlayStation 5, it almost certainly will come out on the PlayStation 5, so announcing that would have been fine as a balance. Or several of the early access games that have been PC exclusives would also make sense. Moving on, we have an article here. Ember Labs announces Kenya Bridge of Spirits for the PS5, PS4, and PC, a cinematic story-driven adventure game. And yeah, there are more games that were announced that were small. I have to applaud that. And I feel like it would have been fairly easy for them to say no. This is the game by the Film Art House Group, and it does look very pretty. But, yeah, I'm not sure how much of a game this really is. It kind of feels like you're almost playing like a Pikmin-esque game. Although they're giving more of a reference to a Breath of the Wild Zelda type game. It actually looks fine. It looks good. Way more action, way more animation in Kenya Bridge of Spirits compared to Goodbye Volcano High. Let's see. Tech Raptor has an article here. Explore the perfect cyberpunk world in Stray. Here's a cat you'll be playing as. Someone brought out an interesting question about that. It's also coming to PC via Steam. Will you be able to customize the look of your cat, or will you always be kind of a orange, I guess this is a tabby cat? It wouldn't be a terrible idea if the cat's changed in color, changed in size as a gameplay mechanic. If you could turn into a small kitten to get through even smaller holes, if you could turn into a big fat cat, you could maybe roll down areas faster, or turn into something that's like more of a fighting stance style creature instead of a speed stance creature, which I imagine the main character, main form would be more of a speed stance style mode. Particularly since this is a cyberpunk world where the cat is almost certainly not a real cat, that would make some sense. Although what the real game there is, I have no idea. And I'm not sure they do either. It does scream like it's one of those games that has a decent chance of being canceled before it actually gets finished. Let's see. Sony Interactive Entertainment and Lucid Games announced Destruction All-Stars. I believe this is the car racing one again. Yeah, I just have the same announcements over and over again. Let's see. TechRaptor is Spider-Man Miles Morales announcement. Annapurna Interactive and Blue 12 Studio are working on the game Stray, which, okay. I'd have to really double check and remind myself what Annapurna Interactive has done. I know the name. It's easy to remember and recognize because it's a weird enough name. That doesn't inherently mean that they've done good quality work. See, Square Enix and Luminous Productions announced Project Athea for PS5 and PC. Let's see what Athea is. Too many one-word games again. We're always having that problem. So, yeah, this is one where you're running and flying, and you seem to be kind of a Earth witch, for lack of a better term. You seem to have magical powers, and you seem like you're going to be fighting dragons and other kinds of monsters. Although I wouldn't be surprised if you just run away from the dragon in this story. It might be a fairly linear game, even though you will have running and jumping abilities. And it might have fairly small, minimal open world sections. I wouldn't be surprised. Here we have a game on Steam called 13 Classic. I know there is like a TV series called 13. And I don't know if this is a video game spin-off of that. This came out in 2003, and I don't know if there's a remake coming out. Yeah. So I'm gonna put this on the follow list, and we can look at the remake and see. I feel like 13 might be a fairly popular game when it first came out. Not any like A tier or AAA tier game, but good enough to justify getting a remake. Certainly, although almost anything these days is getting a remake. So that's not a very high metric anymore. Gamasutra has a job listing here for InnoGames as a Java software developer. I'm surprised there still are Java software developers. This is in Hamburg, Germany. Let's see. This is probably one of the lesser mentioned games. Samurai Jack slices through time in a brand new game. I don't feel like this is the first announcement of Samurai Jack Battle Through Time, though. I think people have just missed that announcement from, I believe, THQ Nordic that is publishing it, because I fairly recall that they said a game was in development. Either Adult Swim said that there was a game in development 6 months ago, or THQ Nordic on their Twitter feed said it was coming out. So, yeah. And it's hard to really have much enthusiasm for Samurai Jack as a game when you kind of know the TV series didn't wrap up, and it was a series that really needed to have wrapped up in some way. And I don't know if it ever got a movie or anything that could better justify that. Let's see. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Strike Solitaire, which looks like it's just a solitaire game, not even in 16:9 resolution, $2.99. And I can see the beginning of the end, but yeah, between being sleepy and being hot due to it being summer and my air conditioner deciding to try and save me a buck by implementing new programming, I'm probably not going to have much energy to do any Steam wishlist cleanup today. You know what? Just, yeah, attack this. And attack this. Go ahead and sacrifice that. And then go ahead and end the turn. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Applications are open for the humble $1 million Black Game Developer Fund. $1 million. Not a lot. Let's see. Fund is open to anyone who has at least 50% owned or operated by Black developers. And questionable as far as just how much of that $1 million fund can you really get. Probably not too much. I doubt you're going to get all $1 million. There is a humble bundle that seems to have a massive amount of games to support. I don't know if it's directly the Black Lives Matter movement or the Black Developer Fund or what. But I did want to cover that because there probably is a good deal there in games. Even if you, for some reason, don't support the movement, or if you just support saving money, you might be in a decent position to do that. See, Tech Raptor has an article here. Foreclosed brings cyberpunk comics to life in 2021, which I guess the name of the game is Foreclosed. Yeah, it's a pretty terrible name, and it seems to me like it is more action-based than you would expect from something that says it's bringing comics to life. There is a kind of a weird disconnect between the action depicted in comics and that action being translated to any other form of media, whether that's video games or movies or anything else. You pretty much have to throw out whatever action is being depicted in comic book form and then start from scratch and start over to say, well, they indicated that some action happened here, but we're going to have to animate that from the beginning. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Warborn, which looks like a strategy placement game, turn-based tactical. Let's see, $19.99, English full audio. I don't know if I see anything here that really interests me. It seems just a little too generic for my taste, so I'm gonna just ignore it. Here we have a game on Steam called Master Magistrate, which is a visual novel. I feel like we had already talked about this, so I may have just opened this a second time. It's already on my follow list even. It's $23.99, full Japanese. Yeah, it is possible I just opened the same things twice. Here we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters. Looks like a top-down twin-stick shooter game. In all fairness, I will have to applaud that the low-effort games and the troll games have been considerably reduced lately. We're barely seeing one or two every couple days. This is $3.49, and it looks like it's just a kind of cheap Chinese game, but I wouldn't even call it that bad compared to some of the other garbage that we've seen. So either Valve has gotten really good at curating content now, or they have people have just given up because they've been too busy social isolating. Next, we have a game on Steam called Eldritch University, which just tags sexual content and nudity. And with a name like Eldritch University, it seems like there probably is an old god, a Cthulhu-esque character. I would also say this animation style, when you look at like these characters, kind of getting away from the moe style and going for more of a Western appeal while still being fairly anime. $5.09 is a little cheap and English only, which is a little weird. So we'll put it on the follow list and we'll see. So he just counted my spell, darn it. Well, without another bowl of Citadel, I'm probably doomed to lose. See, Gamatsu has an article here. Mub Love Expo is set for July 1st. Let's see. So they're going to talk more about this visual novel game. I think we may have already talked about that. Which may mean everything left is stuff we've already talked about. Here we have a game on Steam called INOPS, which looks a little too dark, a little too blocky, a little too much black in the background. Kind of looks like it might be a bit of a limbing game, or a limbo game, or a combination of the two. It's $9.99, English, French, and Spanish. And I'm trying to bend over backwards to justify putting this on the follow list, but I don't see it. I don't see it at all. It's just a little too ugly. It didn't actually show Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. That there is something worth mentioning about this game, in that you jump through dimensions, and in the trailer, as you're jumping through dimensions, it seems like there's very much no load times. Resident Evil 7's village section is also supposed to have a no load time concept. It's an interesting idea, certainly, but it's certainly not something that could be done in the long run. You're just not going to, after that first 6 months to a year of initial first generation releases of games, you're going to be back to square one. There's no way you're going to be able to manage a zero load time, because people are willing to put up with load times. They just really are. People don't like them, certainly, but they're willing to put up with them for better graphics. And the big thing that's still going to kill load times for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X will be loading into RAM the massive amounts of textures. And while there may be some small ways to speed that up or hide those loads, you're never going to get away from that, because they're just going to add more textures and add more polygons per screen. Let's see. I think it's probably worth mentioning that Naughty Dog has decided to start off, I guess, Pride Month or Pride Day with a sign and logo. Remember, Last of Us Part 2 is the LGBTQ plus characters, so they're very much invested in those kind of identity politics. But in a weird way, I feel like a lot of other people, a lot of other companies, both inside and outside of the video game world, probably not going to be doing a lot of pride posts in favor of maintaining focus on the Black Lives Matter posts and protests. Like, if people start to forget, then things are going to end up not really changing. So he caused me to run out of cards, and that was a slow and sucky way. And we're just back down to no pips at Platinum Tier 4. And I have like 5 victories. And I'm going to play one just regular game, and I may even concede this game once we finish the news. I'd say we have about 12 or 13 more things to talk about. TechRaptor has an article here. This is interesting. AT&T is reportedly seeking to sell the WB Games division for $4 billion, which would be the mostly Lego company, TT Games subsidiary, and kind of nothing else. Now, without a very good, like, unrevocable lifetime license to a lot of the WB content, TT Games is not really worth much. Like, you can make Lego movie games, and maybe that's it. Maybe not even that much. If you're to try to make Lego games and not go down that route. Also, Nintendo working with Lego directly might very well be an end run around the Lego game developers. On the other hand, this may not be a bad thing, because if WB Games decided to go their own route, then maybe TT Games would actually be able to fix all their problems with their engines and patch all their old games, instead of just being always in a breakneck race to make the next game, to make the next amount of money. It is also worth mentioning that WB Games would also include, in part, the publishers, if not developers, of the other Batman games, the Batman Arkham Asylum games, and maybe the Lord of the Rings games, some of them, if not most of them. TechRaptor's article continues. It says several major publishers said to express interest. I could see if Microsoft bought them, they could be very happy with that purchase. Take-Two Interactive, they could do something with them, but they might not do anything great with them. EA wouldn't be a bad choice. Activision Blizzard would be a bad choice. So you have like 2 out of 3. Two out of 3 of those options. So yeah, Batman Arkham games, Hitman games, Lego games, Harry Potter games, Middle-earth Shadow War, Mortal Kombat games, and the Scribblenauts franchise. Like, all of these kind of have caveat problems with them. I'd say the Hitman games are probably the one that has the least problems with them, but everything else has some performance issues, around their most recent versions, or just not selling particularly well. It's questionable whether maybe after the AT&T merger happened they decided to do this, or whether this was the plan all along since the last major failure of the Batman game that was so bad. Like, that might very well be the case, is that they decided 2 or 3 years ago to sell the WB Games division, and they just were waiting to get the stock price back up. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Return to Sector 9, which looks like it is a kind of side-scrolling shooter, for lack of a better term, or kind of a top-down twin-stick shooter. It looks pretty generic, though. It's free, so the price is right. English only. Gamatsu has an article here. A survival adventure game called Buried Stars launches in July for the PS4, Switch, and Korea with English subtitles. I haven't seen anything for this game so far. And yeah, everything is just starting to look like a visual novel to me at this point, even though they just said it was a survival adventure game. Yeah. It's kind of a dude-heavy game by the looks of it. You've got like four guys to 2 girls. Usually you see the balance the other direction. Tech Raptor has an article here. Phantasy Star Online 2 Episode 4 release date set for the summer of 2020. So, people still playing Phantasy Star Online 2 apparently. I think people in the East were playing it always, but it seems to have gotten some small resurgence of popularity in the West. Next, we have a game on Steam called Inside the Box, which seems to be kind of a collection of puzzles inside the box. It feels a lot like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, except for maybe single player focused. So I might be interested in that idea. And we'll click fall. The big question would be, does any of this math change? If it does, yay. If it doesn't, well then you would probably solve this once and then have no reason to ever want to play the game a second time. May not have needed to play that land. Yeah, I didn't. Is drastically trying to stop me from playing this card. Next, we have a game on Steam called Operation COVID-19. It's clearly a troll name of a game, and the game itself looks like it's just an asset flip first-person shooter. Doesn't even look that bad because you can asset flip first-person shooters so well these days. It's 99 cents English only. So we still are getting some of those bad games, but not a lot. Check out there's an article here. Race beautifully artistic cards in the art of Rally. I don't know how artistic that card really looks though. Yeah, these just kind of look like a little bit low polygon cars. I don't know if you call that beautifully artistic I don't think the background looks that interesting or pretty, particularly when you're talking about a racing game, because when I think of a racing game and artistic and beautiful, I'm thinking hyper-realistic graphics of a serene background area that you're driving through. Let's do this. If we can get enough things on the field before we die completely. I could get this and this on the field, and then sacrifice everything. Next, we have a game on Steam called Rogue Robots, which looks like a top-down twin-stick shooter game. Again, nothing special about it. $13.59, way too expensive. English full audio. Yeah, there's nothing I see that would even come close to justifying that price. TechRaptor has an article here for A Bird in Cage is a metal album you can play through. I don't believe this was announced at the PlayStation event. It's a 2-hour interactive symphonic metal album. Okay. Let's see. So that's on Steam. I'll put this on the follow list. It's not even out yet, but also I'm not really sure how interactive a metal soundtrack would really have to be to make me want to actually play it, because by the looks of it, this doesn't in any way feel like a interactive album as much as it's just more of a musically themed video game. But I guess I could be wrong about that, and I'm still not sure if that means good things or bad things. Okay, I think we've got it. 1, 2, 3, 6. That should be 8 damage, and that should be 9, which means this should win. So we'll end today's stream on a victory. We'll just go through the rest of today's news. And yeah, I'll have to try and get 4 more victories and probably play a little bit over the weekend. I need to really establish some more discipline as far as once I've played a game, I need to schedule at least one game so that I catch up and don't have 4 or 5 series that are not scheduled. Particularly considering how I have to schedule the Magic Arena videos also. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, The Last Spell is a heavy metal demon slaying adventure. So we've got like 2 heavy metal games, or heavy metal themed games. This seems like this is much more of a traditional just RPG type experience. And yeah, it's coming out on Steam. See, here's the big problem though, is like even in the midst of this PlayStation 5 announcement, with all of those large hype building announcements, there's also TechRaptor able to find several other games that are coming out and build up hype around them also. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article for a twin-stick adventure called Trifox that's coming soon. So just like another one of these. Trifox, again, looks like a game that probably should have been at the PlayStation event if it actually is going to come out for the PlayStation 5. I don't know if it is. Better than Goodbye Volcano Island. Yeah, this one says it's coming to PC, PS4, and Xbox One. So no PlayStation 5. Yeah, I think probably what they ran into as a problem is they had very few indies willing to commit to saying that they would come out on the PlayStation 5. Whereas had they just started the series with here's indie games on PlayStation, and then they swapped between PlayStation 4 and then PlayStation 5, and just having a little logo in the top corner, there's PS4, coming soon PS4, coming soon PS5, then you could confuse the issue and show that there's a bunch of indies coming, but not have to get so many to commit to being PlayStation 5 games. And if you had done that instead of an ad for GTA 5, that would have been probably interesting too. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Data suggests almost half of Xbox One users also own a PlayStation 4. Well, I have an Xbox 360 and a PlayStation 3 before I stopped playing consoles. So I'm not super surprised by that. Although the argument to owning a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One is a smaller argument than owning a Xbox 360 versus a PS3, because there was considerably fewer console exclusives for that generation that were worth playing or worth owning. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Stay Home Social Isolation Game, which seems like it is just another asset flip game trying to be topical. Early access, $7.19. So, yeah, I could have probably removed these games and not talked about them, but there's considerably less happening. Ooh. Well, I don't think this has ever happened before. I am getting the spinning wheel of death, which doesn't happen on Windows very often. I think I have locked up and crashed Chrome. Yeah, Chrome is not responding. Wait for the program to respond. Okay, well, that leaves me with about 10 things that I'll just leave for Monday, and I'll play off screen, and I'll check the Humble Bundle, and if there's a new Humble Bundle, we'll talk about it on Monday. And if there was any news that happened during this stream, we'll talk about it on Monday. We'll just push everything to Monday. That's going to be it for this stream, though. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.